At 6:15 a.m., Talia Green slipped through the heavy blue doors of the East Side Community Center, her canvas tote, bristling with brushes and paint samples, bumping gently against her hip. A thin veil of dawn mist clung to the red brick facade, and the chilly air carried the scent of wet pavement and brewing coffee from the corner cafe. Talia paused before the long wall where her mural had blossomed over 10 years. Vibrant portraits of local black educators, activists, and artists, framed by swirling patterns of gold, crimson, and midnight blue. In the half-light, she saw jagged new shapes splashed across her work, letters smeared in black spray paint, each word a slur that shredded the dignity she'd poured into every stroke. The painted iris of her mentor's eye was streaked with ugly drips. The hands of her grandmother, once cupped in prayer, now bore the crude tag, "Gone." Her heart thundered as she crouched to brush away a fallen leaf, revealing the raw brick beneath the Vandals' tools. Nearby, a cluster of white retirees, wrapped in scarves and sipping paper cups, gathered at the loading docks. Their pitying eyes flicked between Talia and the defaced wall. "Oh my," one muttered, voice tight with unease. Talia straightened, clutching her tote strap, and approached the center's director, Evelyn Cooper, a white woman in her 50s with silver-rimmed glasses and a warm smile that wilted when she saw the damage. Evelyn's face paled. "Talia, I'm so sorry. Maybe we can wait until the rain stops before restoring," she ventured, voice hesitant. Talia's chest burned. She had spent years layering pigment in this brick, like a family album of color and memory, now scraped and scorned by hate. She lifted her chin. "This isn't rain damage, Evelyn," she said evenly, though anger trembled in her voice. "This is erasure." Evelyn looked away, offering a shaky apology. "Let's not make waves. We'll talk about it later." As Talia stepped back, the rising sun caught the streaked slurs in harsh relief, mocking her art, her community, her voice. Pain flared through her fingertips, but beneath it came a fierce resolve. If the world would try to wash out her story, she would build something stronger than paint, an archive no Vandal's spray could erase. By mid-morning, Talia's anger had hardened into determination as she walked the worn corridors of Somerset University's Fine Arts Building. The whitewashed walls here usually hummed with the sound of students chatting about critiques and deadlines, but today the air felt heavy with omission. Talia carried her camera bag, its padded interior cradling the few remaining unvandalized photographs of her mural, past glossy display cases lined with plaster casts of classical sculptures. She paused outside Professor Lawrence Mitchell's office, where a brass nameplate read, "Dr. Lawrence Mitchell, Art History." Steeling herself, she knocked once, then twice. Inside, Dr. Mitchell, a tall white man in a tweed jacket, looked up from his desk strewn with exhibition catalogs. "Ms. Green, good to see you," he said, voice polite but distracted. "How can I help?" Talia stepped in, setting her photos on his oak desk. "My mural was defaced yesterday," she began, each word precise. "I've come asking for the university's support in documenting its history and seeking restoration funding." Mitchell adjusted his round spectacles, scanning the slur-marred images. He cleared his throat. "This is unfortunate, but our public art funding is allocated through the City Commission, not the university. I'm afraid there's not much we can do." Talia's chest tightened. She pressed on. "But you teach public art. Surely the department has archives or faculty who could help preserve its legacy." Mitchell's lips thinned. He opened a file drawer, rifled through past syllabi, then glanced at a cramped schedule. "Our curriculum focuses on Renaissance and modernist movements," he explained. "Local murals aren't within our archival mandate." He offered a sympathetic nod. "I'm very sorry." With that, he returned to his reading, leaving Talia with her photos, evidence of erasure, clutched in her trembling hands. Deflated but not defeated, Talia navigated the labyrinthine hallways to the Digital Humanities Lab, where Dr. Claire Thompson, a white specialist in metadata and archiving, taught graduate seminars. Claire's space was awash in cool blue light from computer monitors, displaying code and scanned manuscripts. When Talia knocked on the glass door, Claire looked up, her brow arching at the unexpected visitor. "Talia, hi. What brings you here?" Talia laid out her plight: the vandalized mural, the city's refusal to restore it, and her need for a digital record before further erasure. Claire tapped her lips thoughtfully. "That's a serious loss," she said quietly. "We could scan whatever photographic material you have, set up a digital repository, maybe even crowdsource images from the community. But we'd need buy-in from the department." Talia exhaled, frustration boiling beneath the lab's cool hum. "I can't wait for bureaucratic approval," she said. "Every hour that wall remains defaced, I lose a piece of our history." Claire studied her, then met her gaze with resolve. "Let's do a pilot," she decided, already wheeling her chair toward Talia's photos. "We'll build a proof-of-concept archive today. Just basic scanning, metadata fields for artist, date, vandalism, community impact. If we get traction, we can approach the dean for formal support." Relief washed through Talia as she and Claire began digitizing the images, typing field tags into the database. Talia Green, 2011 to 2021. Defaced 2025. Erasure event. Community Center East Side. As the afternoon light waned, word spread among Claire's white grad students. Labs opened for mural scans, and a handful volunteered to crowdsource community photos. Yet beyond the lab's door, the Fine Arts Building remained silent on Talia's plight. No posters in the lobby, no announcements in the student newsletter, and no lectures added to campus calendars. That silence spoke louder than any apology. But as Talia watched the first batch of high-resolution scans populate the nascent archive, each pixel preserving what Vandals had tried to obliterate, she felt that the true battle for memory had just begun. 2 days later, Talia sat in the bustling campus coffee shop, its long oak tables strewn with laptops and white-gloved hands cradling steaming lattes, scrolling through her phone's endless feed of Save the Mural petitions. Lost in thought, she nearly spilled her double-shot espresso when a voice said, "Talia Green?" She looked up to see Dr. Robert Ellison, a white art history professor, whose lecture on community murals she'd once attended. His salt and pepper hair and tweed elbow patches gave him the look of someone who belonged to dusty archives, not grassroots activism. Next to him stood Dr. Claire Thompson, the white digital humanities specialist from the lab. "Mind if we join you?" Ellison asked, nodding toward the empty seats. Talia gestured, heart thudding. "I read about the vandalism and your work on the digitization prototype," Ellison began, voice earnest. "I think we can do more." Claire slid a manila folder across the table. Inside were printed copies of Talia's mural scans, annotated with metadata fields, alongside a draft proposal for a Black Art Archive, a university-hosted digital repository cataloging underdocumented Black public artworks. Talia's eyes widened. But how? The art history department doesn't fund local projects. Ellison nodded. True, but the college's Diversity and Inclusion Fund has a small seed grant, up to $7,500 per project. Claire and I wrote a concept brief. It covers server costs for 1 year, stipends for student researchers, and a web developer to build a searchable site. Claire added, "We've earmarked $2,000 for outreach. Flyers, community workshops, oral history recordings from the elders who helped paint your mural." Talia flipped through the folder. A detailed timeline showing Phase 1, digital scans and metadata entry, Phase 2, community crowdsourcing and interviews, and Phase 3, public launch and policy recommendations. "If we secure the grant," Claire explained, "we can hire 2 grad assistants, white and black students, to conduct field visits, photograph other local murals, and record narratives. Then the archive becomes more than a database. It's a living memory of Black artistic contributions." Ellison leaned forward. "I'll sponsor the grant application through my department. Claire will handle technical logistics, and you'll lead the community engagement. Your expertise and credibility as the mural's creator are indispensable." Talia felt a surge of hope and responsibility swirl in her chest. She imagined an online portal where her mural stood restored in pixels, where every erased brushstroke was documented against future attacks. Closing her eyes for a moment, she pictured white-run city commissions, recoiling when confronted with a robust archive of Black public art, suddenly unable to ignore what they hadn't funded. She opened her eyes and smiled. "Let's do it," she said firmly, sliding the folder back to Ellison and Claire. "Let's build a proof of concept that no city committee can erase." They shook hands, sealing the partnership. Around them, the coffee shop's white students and professors studied their laptops, oblivious to the quiet revolution taking shape at the corner table. One that would transform Talia's erased mural into the cornerstone of a broader, unerasable Black art archive. By the following Monday, Talia, Dr. Thompson, and a rotating crew of 6 graduate students, 5 white and 1 Afro-Caribbean, had transformed the Digital Humanities Lab into a frenetic operations center. The long conference table groaned beneath piles of high-resolution prints of Talia's mural, stacks of annotated interview transcripts, and rows of white USB drives already loaded with raw TIFF files. 3 computer workstations hummed with simultaneous tasks: image pre-processing, metadata tagging, and web backend configuration. At 9 a.m. sharp, Talia and Claire convened a metadata sprint. Each graduate assistant received a folder containing 10 mural images and an index card listing standardized fields: title, artist, date completed, location, community significance, and vandalism history. Using Excel spreadsheets harmonized with the Dublin core schema, they meticulously entered data. For Talia's mural, 2011 to 2021, under date completed, Eastside Community Center, 123 Maple Street, under location, and a 3-sentence summary of its 10-year evolution under community significance. In the vandalism history field, they noted 2 defacement events: Talia's recent attack on April 14th and a minor graffiti incident in 2014, each tagged with police report numbers. While metadata sprinters typed, Dr. Thompson walked back and forth, headphones on, guiding the team through GitHub pull requests to integrate the new CSV files into the archive's PostgreSQL database. The white grad student at Station 2 executed batch image optimization commands in ImageMagick, converting 50 megabyte TIFFs to compressed 5 megabyte JPEGs while preserving color fidelity. Sparks of camaraderie flew as students compared notes on color profile calibration. Use sRGB, one advised, to ensure consistency across browsers. At midday, Talia led a Community Voices session in Lab Room B, where local elders, 2 white octogenarians who'd helped paint early mural panels, and a Black retired teacher who'd written oral histories, took turns on a portable Zoom recorder. Talia asked precise questions. What was the mural's original vision in 2011? How did the community react when it expanded in 2015? Each answer became a time-stamped MP3 file. A white grad student transcribed every word into a Google Doc, tagging speaker roles. Interviewee, Ms. Johnson, age 82, founding volunteer, and cross-linking to the community significance metadata field. Meanwhile, Dr. Ellison arrived with 8 white undergraduates, recruited from his Public Art and Society seminar. They wheeled in heavy tripods and DSLR cameras for an impromptu street scanning exercise, photographing surviving sections of Talia's mural on location. Students tested dynamic range by capturing bracketed exposures, 3 images per frame at -2, 0, and +2 EV, to later merge into HDR composites. Back in the lab, these HDR files joined the archive, each auto-corrected for lens distortion via Adobe Lightroom presets that Dr. Thompson pre-configured. By 5 p.m., the archive's staging site, hosted on the university's AWS account, was live in beta, a WordPress front end with a custom plugin for filtering by artist, year, and incident type. Talia clicked through the interface, watching her mural's entry pop up with full documentation: high-res images, community interviews, and vandalism chronicle. She tested the Report New Vandalism form she had insisted on including, submitting a mock report that generated an email alert to the archive administrators. As the campus closed at dusk, Talia gathered her team in the dim lab, fatigue etched on every face. "This is just phase one," she reminded them, voice strong. "Tomorrow we pitch the dean's office for full project funding." A ripple of determined nods swept the room. Outside the lab's frosted glass door, the fine arts building's silence loomed. But inside, a digital army had already begun preserving what bigotry tried to erase. The Black Art Archive now stood, pixel by pixel, as an act of defiant resistance against erasure. Exactly 7 days after the Black Art Archive's beta launch, the Digital Humanities Lab erupted in activity once more. Overnight analytics showed 5,200 unique visitors, 1,800 metadata queries, and 300 user-submitted images of other erased murals. At 10 a.m., Talia Green, Dr. Robert Ellison, and Dr. Claire Thompson gathered around a monitor in Lab A to watch their site's homepage appear on the evening news. New University Archive challenges, city's official art records. Channel 7 news anchor, white mid-40s. The segment praised the archive's crowdsourced approach, but cut quickly to footage of City Council President Mary Caldwell, white in her 60s, who issued a terse statement. "While we commend scholarly initiative, this independent archive undermines the city's vetted public art registry. We are reviewing legal recourse to protect municipal art policy." Within hours, white city council members, Alderman John Simpson and Karen Doyle, pushed for an emergency resolution to compel the archive's removal from AWS servers, arguing it duplicates and conflicts with the city's official database. Emails flooded the council's inbox. Half a dozen white art commissions demanded that Talia's site be deactivated immediately, and the city's legal office circulated memos warning the university of unauthorized publication of controlled assets. At 2 p.m., Alderman Simpson convened a closed session in the council chambers. The vaulted room filled with white civic leaders, 5 aldermen, the parks director, and legal counsel. They debated quoting municipal codes on public art management and drafting a cease and desist letter to the university. The mood was tense. Simpson slammed his gavel on the oak desk and declared a public hearing for Monday evening to vote on a shutdown ordinance. Back in the lab, Talia's phone buzzed nonstop. "Archive under threat of shutdown," read the first alert. "Council hearing scheduled Monday," read the second. She closed her eyes, stifling a wave of panic, then met Ellison's steady gaze. "We need to mobilize," he said, already firing off emails to colleagues in the art history and digital humanities departments. By late afternoon, an open letter campaign was underway. Talia and Ellison drafted a manifesto titled, "For the Preservation of Community Heritage, Defending the Black Art Archive," calling on faculty and graduate students to affirm the archive's academic and cultural value. Dr. Maria Byrne, white chair of museum studies, lent her name, as did 27 other white professors and researchers across 5 disciplines. They pledged, "The Black Art Archive fills critical gaps in the public record, safeguards endangered cultural memory, and complements, rather than replaces, municipal archives." Within 12 hours, the letter amassed 112 signatures, and a PDF circulated to city officials, local media, and civic organizations. White alumni from the art history department posted supportive tweets and op-eds in the student paper, emphasizing the archive's potential as a model for digital humanities scholarship nationwide. On Friday morning, Talia and her allies held an impromptu press conference on the university quad. White professors flanked her at the podium, reading excerpts from the letter into handheld microphones. Local reporters, white freelancers with smartphones, filmed the event live. Talia spoke firmly. "This archive is not a challenge to public policy, but a corrective to years of under-documenting Black art. Shutting it down silences our community's history forever." By the end of the day, the City Council's legal advisor recommended postponing the hearing. In an internal memo, he noted the grave risk of public backlash, First Amendment challenges, and potential conflict with university-town agreements. On Monday evening, when Council President Caldwell took the dais to open the hearing, the chamber was packed. White aldermen in suits, dozens of white professors with the open letter in hand, and a small but vocal contingent of Talia's supporters. Caldwell cleared her throat. In light of substantial academic testimony and community support, I move to postpone consideration of any shutdown ordinance until further review. Her gavel rapped, silencing the room, and the packed white audience erupted in relieved applause. As Talia stepped down from the gallery balcony, her hands trembling with relief, she knew the archive had survived its first and fiercest test. The policy battle would come next, but now the city could no longer ignore that black art, once erased on brick walls, was indelibly preserved in the digital realm. On a crisp Thursday morning at City Hall's wood-paneled chambers, the public hearing began under the watchful portraits of past mayors. The dais held 7 white council members in dark suits, each flanked by staffers clutching legal pads. Packed into the audience were Talia Green, Dr. Claire Thompson, Dr. Robert Ellison, and a delegation of white professors, graduate students, and community members wearing Defend the Archive buttons. At precisely 9 a.m., Council President Mary Caldwell, white and composed, banged her gavel. First to testify was Dr. Ellison, stepping forward to a lectern microphone. He presented a clear bar chart showing that of the city's 1,200 publicly funded artworks, fewer than 2% depicted black artists or subjects. His voice echoed. Without supplemental records, the majority of black public art remains undocumented and vulnerable to erasure. He clicked to a slide of Talia's mural, Before and After Vandalism, rippling through the council's white faces. Next, Dr. Thompson detailed the archive's technical infrastructure, secure AWS backups, open-source metadata standards, and community-driven updates. She emphasized, this project not only preserves history, but integrates with the city's GIS mapping to flag at-risk artworks for restoration. White aldermen exchanged glances, some nodding as they reviewed her printouts. Talia took the podium last. Her voice, steady yet charged, carried through the chamber. My mural was defaced to silence my community's story. This archive is our safeguard against future attacks, an inclusive record that no bureaucrat or vandal can wipe away. She recounted her grandmother's tears at seeing the slur-marred wall, then held up a bound volume of the archive's first 500 entries. These pages are proof of our city's diverse heritage. During the Q&A, White Councilman David Huang asked, will this duplicate city resources? Claire answered calmly, it complements them. Think of our archive as an insurance policy and educational tool. Councilman Sarah Lopez, White, pressed, what about ownership? Ellison responded, all materials are contributed by artists or public domain. The university's role is steward, not owner. After 2 hours, Caldwell reopened the floor for a final motion. White Councilman James Rogers rose, clearing his throat. In recognition of the archival project's cultural and educational value and its broad community support, I move to adopt the proposed public art equity policy, he declared, citing Talia's first-hand testimony. The chamber fell silent as each alderman voted. The roll call ended in a unanimous 7-0 passage. A swell of applause rose from the audience. Talia, Claire, and Robert embraced, tears of relief shining on their cheeks. Outside, the sun broke through the morning clouds as Council President Caldwell signed the new ordinance, Public Art Equity Policy. Ensure at least 30% of municipal art funding supports underdocumented BIPOC artists. Mandate digital archival records for every public artwork, in partnership with the Black Art Archive. Establish a rapid response team to document and restore vandalized works within 72 hours. As the chamber emptied, Talia lingered by the front doors, gazing up at the mural on her phone, now safe in both brick and archive. In the glow of policy transformed by her testimony, she knew the city's promise to remember would be as enduring as the very art they had sought to erase. 2 weeks after the City Council's landmark vote, Talia Green returned at dawn to the Eastside Community Center, where crews of white and black restoration artists in paint-splattered coveralls had assembled beneath her once vandalized mural. The pale morning light revealed fresh scaffolding draped in plastic sheeting. White tarps covered sections, still awaiting repair. Talia stepped forward, brushing a stray lock of hair from her face as workers removed the protective sheets. Beneath the plastic, every crimson swirl, every golden highlight of her 10-year masterpiece gleamed as if brand new, meticulously repainted by hand to match her original palette. As the last sheet fell, the first senator of the Public Art Equity Policy, a white woman named Senator Elaine Carver, stepped forward with a ceremonial brush dipped in midnight blue, touching her stroke to the mural's edge in solidarity. Behind them, Dr. Robert Ellison and Dr. Claire Thompson watched as white university students and community volunteers placed printed QR code plaques along the plaza. Each plaque linked to the Black Art Archive's permanent record of Talaya's work, full of high-res images, oral histories, and metadata entries that ensured no future attack could erase its story. A white-jacketed city technician pressed a button on a small speaker, and a soft, recorded voice, Talaya's own, rose to explain the mural's significance and the new rapid response policy. Here stands the legacy of Black educators who built our schools. Here the spirit of activists who marched for justice. Should Vandals strike again, this digital record will keep their stories alive. As the morning sun climbed, a mixed crowd of white retirees, families of color, local school children, and city officials gathered for the unveiling ceremony. The mayor, a white man in a navy suit, stepped to the mic and recited the Public Art Equity Policy's 3 pillars, his voice echoing off the red brick walls. We commit to fund and protect BIPOC art, to document every public work digitally, and to restore vandalized art within 72 hours. He concluded with a nod to Talaya. Your vision has reshaped our city's promise to remember and to include all who create beauty in our streets. Moved by the applause, Talaya felt tears prick her eyes as white professors, volunteers, and elders who had helped paint the mural in 2015 presented her with a framed print of the mural overlaid with the policy text. Children from the neighborhood took turns scanning the QR codes on the plaques, their laughter ringing like bells across the plaza. As white and black hands clasped to raise a ribbon-cutting banner, Talaya stepped back to admire the scene. Her art, once marred by hate, now fully restored, physically and digitally, under the strongest protection the city had ever offered. In that moment, she knew the mural's stories would be restored and remembered for generations to come.